In this video, I'll tell you about the problem I had some years ago when I used this Bosch belt sander. This is the GBS 75 AE belt sander. I've owned this belt sander for over 20 years. I've used it sanding floors, furniture, outdoor timber materials. It is a very good, high quality, reliable belt sander. The problem I faced one time when I used this sanding a floor was that the belt broke and jammed inside the rear wheel of the sander. Now, it doesn't matter if you have the same sander, because it's not the sander that is the problem, it is actually the belt. Join me in this video as I explain to you the problem and how to mitigate the risk. Let me start by giving you a very simple overview of this Bosch belt sander. This is the GBS 75 AE. This model I have is over 20 years old. I bought it when I first wanted to sand a hardwood floor in a house. Now it's got the rear roller, the front roller. It's got a bottom plate where there's a consumable item, a graphite material. On the rear, the handle, it has a speed control. Let me show you the speed control. There, you can turn it to A, B, C, D, E settings of speed. You turn it on by squeezing and it will spin at the speed that you set it. This model of the belt sander is made in Skintiller, Switzerland. What I understand from the internet is that Bosch licensed the intellectual property for this model of the sander some 40 years ago from another German company, and it's the same design. Maybe the motor's newer and all that, but fundamentally it is the same design. So there's top metal gear in here, and that attaches to a bigger gear here, which is connected to this rear roller. They're connected via a rubber belt. This is the exit where you can attach a dust bag like this. This is Bosch's microfilter system. Now, if you have to replace this graphite piece, it is much more cost effective if you buy a big roll like this, and then you just cut it up to what size you need. I have taken the sanding belt off only because when I store the sander now, I, as a practice, take the belt off only because I do not want to keep constant tension on the belt. How you put the belt on is simple. Just pull the lever. It shortens the length of the front wheel to the back. Then you slip it in. And you close it. Then if power is connected, this will spin, it will turn, and you just need to turn these knobs so that the belt is aligned centrally. I'll remove the belt again. Let me explain what happened to my belt sander. So I was sanding a floor, and you'll see that on all closed loop belts there is always a joint. The joint is essentially glued under high pressure, and what happened was that the joint gave way and it broke whilst the belt sander was running, and because the motion runs this way, part of the belt was jammed inside this. You can see this is a very small tight gap, and when the belt gets jammed in there, the way this thing is constructed, there is no way for me to remove that jammed belt without removing this rear roller wheel. A simple Phillips head screwdriver will remove the cover. What you can see here is the motor will drive this small gear, which transfers the power to the larger gear, which is directly connected to the bottom rear roller. Now, with the belt jammed in there, I had to find a way to remove this, but when I looked at it and saw that the nut was embedded within the gear case itself, I was stumped. and what I did was I tried to remove this by putting a flathead screwdriver here and levering to push this out. I could not. I ended up damaging the bottom gear. So this is the damage to the bottom gear when I tried to lever it. It's a very soft metal. Unfortunately, this gear itself does not come separate. Had to buy this entire rear wheel assembly. So I coughed up the money and paid a Bosch repair shop to remove this, because they knew how to take this out, and I asked them how you remove this. The tool shop said to remove this rear wheel you have to jam a screwdriver in here. So obviously what I'll do is put a piece of cloth, jam the big screwdriver in here, and then use a pair of grips with a cloth around this and turn this clockwise so the gear will move out. That's the only way you remove this. Now for me, that's not a great design to have to shaft something in here in order to remove that gear. So the tool shop did that. They replaced the big gear, the rubber belt, and the big roller. In case you think I was stingy and used cheap belts and that's why the belts gave way, well, these are all the belts that I have had for several years. I hope you can see the brand. It's Klingspor, and Klingspor is made in Germany. I've got various grids of sanding belts from coarse to fine, all Klingspor. So they're not cheap belts, they're high quality belts. So where is the problem? Well, the problem is that I've had these belts for probably over 10 years, and I store them in a workshop. The workshop gets very hot in summer because it's just a tin shed without insulation. So that's not great for the glue seams. Right, all closed loop sanding belts have glue seams, which means that over time the glue will fail. So that's the lesson learned. Now all these belts are wasted because I'm not gonna risk it and use them, because I'm quite sure they will snap in time, because they're more than 10 years old and they were kept in the shed that was very hot. So what am I gonna do with these? Well, I'll just cut them when I need to and use them as hand sanding paper, unfortunately. So the lesson is this: don't buy too much of these sanding belts thinking that you save money, because unless you use them in high volume, they'll be wasted. So what I have now for my most recent project is I've just bought bundles of 5. These are Diablo, and they are made in Switzerland. However, I'm not buying huge quantities of each grit. That's a grit 120, that's a grit 80, and that's a grit 36. There's only 5 in each, and I'll just have to buy more when I finish using the 5 that I have of each grit. That's the lesson: don't overstock sanding belt because the glue will fail. I have seen on the internet some users that have got advice from a German manufacturer that belts they make have an expiry period of 2 years shelf life, and I assume that shelf life where they are stored in cool and not humid conditions. So for everyone out there who uses a belt sander, take my advice: check the expiry dates of the sanding belts you're buying. Don't buy more than what you're gonna use in the short term, and store your sanding belts in a cool, dry place. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it informative. Do hit the like button and subscribe to my channel to help it grow. Thank you.